Hi, I'm Omkar. I'm the founder CEO of Miracle.io, and it gives me great pleasure to announce the second series of our podcast on education. And this time, the focus will be on female educators pioneering student centric education. Because we chose this podcast because we see many female educators leading the way in terms of how education should be done in the new age. And it gives me great pleasure to have Ms. Sulbha Shantwan, who has been one of the most pioneering educators that I have ever met in in the last few years of working in education. So before I hand it over to Sulbha, I'd like to sort of have a short introduction of Sulbha from my side. So Sulbha is the director and founder of Sandbox, and Sandbox is an alternative education organization with about 100 students across India, Middle East, and Europe. And as it turns out, Sandbox just turned 10 years in the last year, so in December 2022. And Sulbha and Sandbox have had a very long and a very inspiring journey for us, especially seeing how alternative education becomes more and more the need of the hour. Sulbha and Sandbox have been doing it for the last 10 years. So it's really an honor and a pleasure to hear Sulbha's story with us today on our podcast. So, Sulbha, maybe we'd love to hear a short introduction about you and Sandbox, and maybe a short summary of how the Sandbox story started and how it has been for the last 10 years. So I'll
All
let
right.
you take it from here.
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Omkar, for inviting me on this show. And to start with Sandbox, I think I'll need to start with my own journey as a parent, because Sandbox is a baby of my parenthood more than my organization. I say this because. I'll start with who I am and what I do. I am an educator by profession and by choice. So I have completed my master's in life sciences actually, and also a postgraduate in education field. But having said that, I felt that I was always inclined towards teaching, and I think I gave up my clinical research and all my life sciences stream because I could see the spark in the children, and I felt that I can do more justice on this side. So I started my journey there, and I've worked in very good schools, and I think every school has given me a lot to learn from. And while I was in that journey, there were certain things that I felt were not correct in terms of the children were not given enough time to learn a concept, or there were some children who were really learning the concept really fast, but they were not allowed to go further. So these were certain things that were really bothering me as a coordinator or one of the senior members in the organization. When we took it to the heads and we tried to discuss, we were outrightly rejected, saying that no, this cannot be changed, because of course I understand that they abide by certain rules and regulations, and we don't have much flexibility there. So all this was going on in my mind, where I had a small kid, my son. And when his education journey was about to begin, I started scouting for, alternative methods. That what can I do, because I was very sure of one thing. So that time homeschooling was quite new, and I didn't really know what homeschooling was. I didn't even know that we are able to do something like this. But one thing I was very sure of is that I'm not going to send him in a conventional school. That was very sure. I didn't know what I'm going to do next. So when I started exploring a lot of beautiful pedagogies, Maria Montessori, Charlotte Mason, some things that I picked up from Reggio Emilia. So they were the beautiful pedagogies that I was experimenting with my own kid. And I could see that, he is really thriving on those concepts. He was really doing very well. So when his preschool age started, and obviously the pressure is there, and we all have to go through, everybody was like, okay, when are you putting him in school? I said, okay, he's still preschooler. Let's see how things go. And maybe, when he's in grade 1, I will take a call. So until then, we explored almost all pedagogies. I got myself trained into Waldorf because I was very fascinated with the concept. So my journey went on. After which I felt that, when he was about, say, 6, I think he was about 4 or 5 when thought of starting something like Sandbox. Wherein I thought that, there might be similar parents who don't want to actually send their kids to a conventional school. So, can I do and can I think of something that I can do for them? So, I just spoke to a couple of my friends because that time there was no intention of starting it like a company or a school, or I don't know what to call it also, actually. I don't know whether it's a school or an alternate school, but yeah, the learning space, I would better call it that. So when we started, so I spoke to my couple of friends, and our journey started from there, where we had just 3 students. My kid was really small. We started experimenting with concepts. And I felt that, if children had a concept understanding, then no matter what board or what curriculum or what pedagogy they are following, I think they can just win any battle. So that is what I got to know while I was working with my kid, as well as many other children. And then I came to know more about Swashikshan. I came to know more about what homeschooling is all about and things like that. And then I think we started the actual homeschooling route, and the journey has been fabulous so far. Homeschooling not only my kid now, but as you mentioned, 100 other kids from different zones, different time zones, different continents, even. And it is really a very, very rewarding journey, I would say. Yeah.
Indeed, I think it's a very inspiring story. I've heard this before, and every time I hear it, it just excites me so much because it is. I think it's a story of self-discovery. It's a story of evolution. It's a story of sort of trailblazing, simply choosing a path that does not exist, or is not least the path least traveled, but then making and forging a leadership in it. So I think that's really inspiring to hear from you. So as you explained, the core philosophy of Sandbox is to uncover and strengthen the core strengths of the students by helping them understand the fundamental concepts, no matter what curriculum they're from or what country they may be in, by understanding the foundation effectively so that they can build on top of that with their own hands-on work and hands-on activities. So how is Sandbox doing this differently than other schools? Could be traditional schools, could be other alternative schools. What makes Sandbox unique in its approach?
Hmm. Okay, so I think, what we believe very firmly is that every child is different. And as one shoe doesn't fit all, I feel one system doesn't work for all. So, Sandbox is a very, very fluid, very, very flexible kind of a system. Wherein we give the child an opportunity to come and explore the system first. We don't claim that like this is an ideal system, so I don't claim that. So I want to see whether this fits into your needs. So if the child's needs are getting satisfied by this system, then I think that system works for him. Now, what we do is, when the child comes to us, any child, whether he's coming from a school, dropped off from school, or, by choice is moving out of conventional and wants to move into alternate, we, first thing is we talk to the children, we talk to the parent, because this is a very different route, and there is a lot of responsibility on the parent as well as it is on us. So we need to understand what their requirement is. If their requirements fit into our offerings, that's when we take the conversations forward. And once they are into the system also, we don't have like one age classroom. We have multi-age classroom, which is a very different thing. Also, that gives us there are two reasons why we choose a multi age classroom. There's a lot of peer learning that happens between the children, because they can learn from an elder. And when it comes from you or me, they might not be so receptive, but when it comes from a similar age group child, they are more happy and eager to learn more. So that is one advantage. Second is, I think we are giving them a very unbiased, very simple structure wherein nobody is judging them for knowing something or nobody is judging them for not knowing something. Because what I've often seen in normal schools is that, say a child is in grade 3 and doesn't know a particular concept. I've heard so many times teachers commenting that you don't even know grade 1 syllabus. So I feel that's very demotivating for the child, and it's not a nice place to be in. So here our system is that, okay, even if they are in, say, block 1, so we call it blocks, we don't call it classrooms. So if the child is in block 1, so primarily he is doing upper KG, he is doing grade 1 as well as he is doing grade 2 at the same time. So even if he doesn't know something, it's subtly put out there and he doesn't feel judged. Also, it gives the child a confidence to come up and say that I don't know something. Can you please teach me? Because he gets a very, unbiased kind of an environment. Nobody's judging him, very non-judgmental environment. So I think that's the beauty of it. And secondly, if we see that a child is really fast at learning, we call them advanced learners. So we don't stop their growth like school. Like even if he say 10-year-old, like we have a kid who's just 10-year-old, but he's practically sitting with 8th graders and 9th graders, and he can get it. So I think that is the beauty of this kind of a system, where there's a huge flexibility in terms of even the number of hours that we are investing with each child is very short. It's just 2 hours in a day. So practically they get the entire day for themselves to explore their strengths, their weaknesses, or any other activity that they want to pursue further. So I think, yeah, that's what makes us kind of different slightly.
That's great. I think it's blurring the boundaries between these, it's paper walls is the way I like to think about it. You've done life sciences, so of course you know that there are paper walls between physics, chemistry, and biology. And I think similarly, definitely, I think that sort of breaking these boundaries between grades or classrooms, I think makes a lot of sense, because then it's more inclusive, it's more conducive for peer learning, and as you suggested as well, that there are, like, it sort of unlocks the growth of the individual student
Yeah, and I mean,
very
I would go
effectively.
beyond and say that, we don't only have paper walls between the classrooms, but we don't have a textbook also. Like, we don't use textbooks because I feel that's a limiting factor. Because, psychologically, I'm speaking, that if I have something in front of me in black and white, in my mind, I feel, okay, I have studied these 10 points and I'm done. I know it. So I wouldn't even bother and check whether there is anything beyond the 10 points, right? So I think the beauty also lies that we keep our curriculum also very open-ended. And as you mentioned very correctly, that, there should not be subject boundaries. So we have something which we call as integrated concept. So we take a concept and, relate it with English, math, science, physics, chemistry, everything together. So that also is how life is, isn't it? It's not compartmentalized, correct? So I think that gives the children a lot of chance to understand in in a holistic manner than just being very compartmentalized in their mind.
Absolutely. And I think at the intersection of domains and disciplines is where the magic happens. That is something that we at Miracle.io also believe in. And maybe speaking of intersection of domains, I wanted to hear a bit more about technology and education, and these two domains intersecting. And how is Sandbox integrating technology into its teaching learning methods and processes?
I think being a completely online setup, technology is at our core because we can't survive even a single day without technology. So, right from assignment submission to our live classes to using Miracle, for example, everything is technology based. And I think that gives children a lot of, because see, today's children are also slightly different than how we studied, right? So we were very happy with our paper pen book kind of a system, but I don't see anybody writing anymore. And so we can't expect the children to be learning in the same pattern even today. So I think technology comes in handy where so we use a lot of technology and we are always on the hunt of new tools that we can use to supplement our children's learning process. And I think that's how we found Miracle as well in this entire, quest of finding right tools for our children. And I think they work as excellent audio visual because today children understand very well when they're using all their senses. And I think that's one opportunity for us for using it. Second and foremost, I feel technology just connects us. Like we are all scattered in different continents, and this is one connecting point. So even children feel connected in that thing. So yeah, it's been fabulous, and our children have been using, like, I think, the best technology ever, and now they're experiencing XR. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. And I think that's one of the things that, struck me about Sandbox as well, like how technologically advanced the operations and, the processes were, right? From, of course, everyone has experienced digital classrooms now, right? So
Correct.
everyone has been used to the idea of it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But that's just the beginning. I think, people have been using video calls, Skype, and all of these things for, I don't know, since 2010, at least, if not
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So that's not something new, but like now with what is possible with the technology of today is something that a lot of education technology is also bringing forward these kind of possibilities. So one of them, as you mentioned about, also is XR, extended reality.
Yeah.
So that is something that really changes the game for teachers and students. So maybe I'd like to double click on that a bit and understand your perspective as an educator, as a parent, about how XR with Miracle specifically, since we've been using that for a while now, you as well as your students, how has that changed or how has that affected positively or negatively the
No.
experience for you and the
Mhm.
students?
I think it's not negative. It's definitely positive only. So I'll tell you, I'll tell you as an educator first. I think the challenges what we educators sometimes faces. One is if you have a lab, then that's an ideal kind of a situation. But I also work with a lot of children who are in very remote places who do not have access to good laboratories, right? Now, under that circumstances, how will I explain, say, for example, I want to explain a concept of light to the child. How do I explain him that, okay, when I'm using a converging lens, the rays are going to intersect, right? And if I'm using a diverging, it's going to go apart. So it's very abstract. So is maths also, for that matter. So math and physics, I think, though it's very everyday usage kind of things, but they're very abstract to understand. So, we follow something which is called as a CPA concept, which is that, do something concrete, then pictorial, and then move to abstract. So I think with Miracle, that CPA concept for physics worked really well, because when I say concrete is something where you're using your hands, your kinesthetic sense. And I think when they were, so all our children are tech savvy, obviously, because, they're all the time on the laptop, either gaming, either researching, either studying. So when I introduced them to Miracle, it was a game for them, because they felt that they could just take the phone, scroll around, check something, and actually just keep clicking buttons. So initially they took it like a game, and they were like very it was fun for them to just keep clicking the buttons. Okay, but later, I think when they did it for the second time, that excitement was a bit down, and then they actually started reading, or the prompts were coming, like, do this, do that. They then started understanding. And the best part was that when I did this particular activity with my children, I had not taught them the concept. So I wanted to see how much justice does this app do, that will do to the children alone if I am not in picture. And I think they did a good job. So I give them a test of about 10 marks, and I think everybody got about a 7. So I think it's doing well even without a teacher. And yes, of course, there are some things which, I mean, we are not replacing a teacher out here, but yeah, but if this is there, I think the child at least understands, can visualize, can work, and comprehend what the concept is all about. So I think it was an amazing, amazing tool. And we love working with Miracle. And in fact, children look forward to working with it.
That's great.
So
And I
yeah.
think, like you rightly said, right, the key is to make it attractive to students so that they want to do it, of course, but at the same time, you just don't want them to be just clicking buttons, like the novelty
Yeah.
factor should not be the only thing that attracts them. So I think that's really great feedback. Thank you very much. And I think, like you said, the goal is not to replace teachers, rather it's to empower them. Maybe
Yeah.
the goal would be to replace textbooks, but not
Yeah.
teachers. I don't think you can replace teachers. The teacher is a very integral part of a child's development. Um, I can say that because I studied in a not at Sandbox, unfortunately, but I studied in a place which had very good teachers, and I think I'm very thankful for that. It has
Hmm.
taken me places where I wouldn't have been otherwise. Um, and I think coming from an educator, like the experience of using Miracle at Sandbox as an educator, as a parent, and having seen how students use it, I think it's a very powerful account. And of course, there's a lot to build on top of that. We're only getting started, but I think
Right.
that's really good feedback. Thank you very much. Maybe one question that I had about Sandbox going forward, right? So now you've completed 10 years.
Yes.
We are at the beginning of 2023. How do you see Sandbox evolving, let's say, by the end of this year, by December 2023?
Well, that's a very tricky question. But yeah, I think I'm very happy when my children do well. So my biggest reward is I see my children, somewhere where they are, in a happy space. Because for me, that is paramount. My children's happiness is all that matters to me. Academics, I feel, is just a part of our life, and it falls into place, eventually. So yeah, I think now that last year we did have something like internship Mila, which was a huge success, and the kids really got selected in proper companies, and they're working so hard. I think that has been a very big boost for me, and I think I'm looking forward to do more such things which are more life skill centric. So moving forward, I definitely want to work more on the life skills of the children, training them along with academics as their base. Of course, academics as the backbone, but maybe developing concepts which are more industry, making them more industry ready. So that would be our focus for this coming year.
Indeed. And we've been a part of the internship Mela, the internship fair. And I think the students at Sandbox are just so far ahead of their peers. It's just incredible to see. Like they're so advanced technically, skill wise, of course, but also socially. Like they're so confident. They're ready, is that's the word that I can come up with right now. It's
Yeah.
just surreal. It was very surreal for me to see that how far ahead these kids are. In fact, some of my team members were like, wow, if this is the next generation, then we have to be afraid of our jobs.
Yeah. They,
that
no,
was
they
that
are
was
ready. They
very
are ready. You're saying it absolutely right. They are ready, and I think there's a lot of effort that parents put in, the teachers put in, they themselves put in, in their, I mean, developing their skills and all of that. So yeah.
absolutely. I think this is the best answer to everything that everyone has to say about homeschooling, right? Because people have this bias against homeschooling sometimes.
Yeah.
But then when you see these outcomes, that's the answer. You don't have to say anything else, right?
Right.
I think that's
Trust
very
me, Omkar,
powerful.
like this particular event was just an experiment per se, because, every time I used to get some new inquiries about homeschooling, the first question that everybody used to ask, what about their future? What about their future? So much so that at a point I felt like I need to validate this. I need to show them that, look, there's nothing to be afraid of, because the skills are all there, and that's what the world is looking out for. I think, the one thing that I've seen change is that today no more people are behind mark sheets, or somebody is getting 100. It's no big deal. So I think skills is all that changes. 100, say two kids with same marks. The only thing that changes between them is their creativity, and how they apply their knowledge. So I think, yeah, that's what we are aiming to achieve.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really look forward to seeing this come to life in over the next year and over the next coming years as well. And we've also had a few students from Sandbox working with us as a part of the Miracle Ambassador program, and it's just a pleasure to work with them. It's, I would say, on record that that's the favorite part of my week is to interact with the ambassadors who are students from Sandbox and are just, you know, using their creativity to come up with so many bright ideas and so many great initiatives themselves. So it really works. Like this much I can say for sure.
Yes.
And this is something that I also love to support as much as I can. So let's definitely keep in touch on these topics about how we can do more of these initiatives together. So really looking forward to that. And with that, I'd like to conclude our podcast today. It was nice, Shulbha, to sort of understand the story of Sandbox for not just me, but for our audience also, to see where you started, why you started, the journey over the last 10 years, your focus on student centricity and life skills, and your dedication and your passion towards making education more valuable and more useful for the generation of tomorrow. I think that's a very inspiring story, and that's something that all of us will be inspired by and be referring to in many different forms and ways. So thank you very much for your time, Sulbha, today, and wishing you and the Sandbox family a very, very, very successful year ahead. And I'm sure we'll have another podcast episode with you. But until then, take good care, and thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Omkar, for having me. Bye bye. You take care.
It's been a pleasure.